These people, these pirates that we're dealing with are longing for this adventure, this like sense of danger in their lives. But it used to be, it's maybe out of practice in that way. And it used to be something that was more accepted or cooler for people. But there's something about these particular pirates that are like, no, we're in it for the lore, for like the vibes, kind of, as opposed to for like the crime of it, you know?
And welcome back to the podcast, the Broad Street Review podcast. I am your host, Darnelle Radford, the man who wears many hats, who is also stuck in this red box. We're still stuck here. Like I said before, I can bring people in and they can leave, but I'm stuck in here for some reason. I'm still here, but it's a happy place. And today I'm virtually transported to Quintessence Theater Group out in Chestnut Hill, Mount Airy, Germantown, whatever you want to call it. And we're here to talk about Pirates of Penzance, the Gilbert and Sullivan piece that has a chokehold on us all. Like there are many moments in here that we've taken away. They've just been part of culture for so many years. And Quintessence has brought it to the stage for us to enjoy on stage through January 4th. Today, we are in the virtual studio with Trevor Martin, who is playing the Pirate King
Yes,
in
hello.
Pirates of Penzance. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Darnell. So glad to be here.
I was saying in our pre-chat that I saw the production just before Thanksgiving and really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. There's so much energy on stage and it's bright and vibrant, and like, how can you not sit there with a smile on your face? It was just a lot of fun, and it appears you guys are all in sync and having fun on stage.
Well, it's some of the most fun we could possibly have. I mean, it's kind of this like childhood. We're just truly playing. I understand that people say that all the time, but this is at its core just being as silly and goofy as possible and being a pirate and sword fighting. Like, what else? Like, my 6-year-old self could not have been more happy with how my life had gone in this moment.
That's what I was just about to say. I was like, when you're young, especially if you're a young boy, you sort of glom onto these uniformed roles that have been depicted for men, and it's either like the good, what you would consider the good is like one of those, fighter pilot,
Sure.
military guy or something, but then like the fun characters that are mischievous, not necessarily bad guys, would be a pirate. And
Absolutely.
there's always like this flamboyance about a pirate where you're just like, I could watch you all day. I
Yeah.
don't think you're trying to hurt people. You're just creating chaos.
Correct. For your own enjoyment and the enjoyment of others.
Yeah. So before we dive into Pirates of Penzance, tell us about Trevor.
Hi, so I'm Trevor. I live in New York City. I've been there for about 8 years. But I'm from Georgia originally, and I've worked all over, like in my right out of school. I actually studied opera for undergrad and grad school, and have had many experiences with Gilbert and Sullivan in the past in the opera world, as is wont to do. Everyone loves it for a good reason, which has been a lot of fun. But I've, in the last, 8 years or so, 10 years, I've done more and more theater, more plays, more TV film, things like that, hence moving to New York and that draw there. I also am a musician. I play a bunch of instruments, and I'm a teacher. I've taught voice and piano and guitar for a very long time. And music has always been like, that was my entry point into theater. I certainly wasn't like a theater kid growing up in that way. Like, I didn't really do plays or anything until late in high school. Was more of a band nerd, choir nerd. So the whole idea of using music to tell stories through musicals or operas or operettas or whatever just seems to fit really easily. Yeah, I'm very fortunate to be able to continue to do this and be doing the type of thing that I wanted to do since I was in high school, So it's
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's always interesting to explore how people made their way into theater.
Mhm.
It's interesting that you made your way in through music and then ultimately came into theater. What was the moment or the element that said, okay, theater, I'm going to make a turn to theater?
When I was in high school, I did my junior and senior year, I did some community theater. I did Godspell and Les Mis Junior, which Les Mis Junior is an insane concept. You're like, the oldest people can be 19 and yet you're playing all these crazy things. But I'd always liked those shows, obviously. And got hooked into that and was just like, oh my gosh, this is such a blast. I got to play Valjean in that. But the reason I think I got the part was because part of my audition was that I had to pick up the guy that was playing Marius because he was already cast,
Mm,
because you have to drag him through the sewers. And I was like, okay, cool. Like that was part of it. So I was like, there's so much more joy in this. But then when I went to school, when I went to undergrad in Georgia, they didn't have a musical theater department. They had an opera program. And I was like, okay, that feels like it's the same. And it basically is, right? I mean, it's what the
mm,
precursor of a lot of these things. And the more I got into that, coming from the music side of things, I was like, oh, well, being able to truly be able to tell these stories through music or without it, with dialogue or plays and things like that, became more and more attractive to me than just music for its own sake, right? I mean, it's
yeah.
having that storytelling element and also dropping not just the performer but the audience into this kind of sublime transcendent place simply by starting music is, I mean, that power is incredible to be able to wield and to receive as an audience member. So that's just like living in that juicy little middle ground has always been very attractive. And to be honest, I've been more and more attracted to things that don't require as much music because it's
Mm.
more difficult for me, at least. I'm like, okay, I don't have that to lean on. You have to make your own music throughout things like that. And yeah, I guess I just being on stage and telling those types of stories with or without music has been the same, whether it's opera or musicals or anything in between.
Yeah, yeah. So I always think about the musical Fame. There's a little cadence in one of the songs where they are arguing about which profession is the hardest in the world, and so they'll say acting first, and then they say dance and music. And so I always ask that question about for music or for theater, which one, in your opinion, is harder or more challenging or requires a different focus? Like I know that there are nuances that are similar, but like if you were to put them in order of
Sure.
challenge, I guess.
Well, for me personally, I would say my as a non dancer, I would say that that is something that would requires the most amount of work for me. I've certainly done shows that require dance in them, but I always show up the first day and I find that dance captain. I'm like, hey, we're gonna be friends. Like we're gonna need some remedial extra attention here. I also think it's one of the things that I enjoy watching the most because I know enough about it to know that it's to know what's impressive about it, but I'm not so in it that I'm hyper analytical as I might be when if I go and see a play or a symphony or a musical. So I love to go see dance programs, the ballet, things like that in the city. It's really wonderful. So I would say that that in particular is probably the most difficult. And then I would say for me, acting would be the next because it, like I said, making your own music throughout the course of something, you're only given this text and sometimes no stage directions, and you have to make your own melody. You have to make your own composition throughout the course of it with a group of people is something that I certainly takes a little more work. If someone gives me something with music in it, I'm like, okay, someone's already made a lot of these choices for me, like the speed at which I'm singing, the volume, the words, and I can bring my own interpretation into that. But that's certainly the place in which I feel most comfortable. So I guess that's how I would rank it, would be dance, acting, music.
In terms of complexity?
Absolutely. And in terms of,
Yeah.
for me personally, and I know that for other people, depending on their experiences and their backgrounds, that might be different. But yeah, certainly for me, I feel like that is what is what requires the most focus for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I never know how to answer that question. I just think it's fun in that moment for them to be, rooting for their profession and saying it's the hardest profession. But at the same time, you're like, but it's the hardest. So why not choose the one you don't think
Something
is
else.
the hardest? You know, but they're up for the challenge. And that's kind of
Absolutely.
what the premise is in that.
Hmm.
Okay. So we've learned a little bit about Trevor. So tell us about Pirates of Penzance.
Oh my gosh, it's such a fun show. Where to start? I mean, it's an older show, obviously 1870s, 80s, but it's so amazing that it is so remarkably poignant and silly and funny, even with the concepts that we're talking about. I think one of the things that's so great about it is that this is about 100 years after the golden age of piracy, of like what we would think of like Blackbeards and all these things. And so this is after the fact. These people, these pirates that we're dealing with are longing for this adventure, this like sense of danger in their lives. But it used to be, it's maybe out of practice in that way. And it used to be something that was more accepted or cooler for people. But
Mm,
there's something about these particular pirates that are like, no, we're in it for the lore, for like the vibes, kind of, as opposed to for like like the crime of it, you know. But it's been around, like I said, for a long time, and it's had all these different versions of it. Things have been cut and pasted and put in different places. There's in our particular production, we have some songs from other Gilbert and Sullivan shows that we've
Hmm.
pastiched into it, in which it's very self-referential. There's parts in it where we're like, hey, this song is actually from this other show, but there's one particular part where we're like, it doesn't even matter what we're singing. Like what we sing just doesn't matter. The idea and the feeling of what we're singing is what you're accepting. And so there's a lot of self-referential self-awareness that happens throughout the course of the show that I find delightful. And it doesn't take itself seriously whatsoever. I mean, it
Yeah.
does certainly have political undertones, overtones sometimes, about class system and the whole concept of being a pirate is actually more respectable than working through the bureaucracy on land. Like
Hmm.
you want to talk about crime? That's the crime that's happening, is the stuff that's happening in Parliament, not the stuff that's happening on this ship, you know? So there's
Yeah.
some undertones like that I think we can all relate to when it comes to any sense of authority or any paradigm that we're living in, regardless of country or decade or century. So
Yeah.
that part is pretty timeless, I think. But it's not preachy in that way. I mean, you can kind of come and just have a blast enjoying seeing these grown adults acting like fools on stage. And I think that's a really cool thing. Our heroic lead, Frederick, is a really wonderful character because he was a pirate. He's then served his time as a pirate, or at least thinks he has, and then is able to be released. And now his sense of duty, he's torn because he's like, well, I love you guys, and we've spent all this time together, and you've raised me. But now that I'm not a pirate anymore, y'all are criminals, so I need to prosecute you. You know, and he's torn between like, well, I was this person with you, and now I have to be this new person. And I think that that's a very fun and silly way to kind of reflect upon our
Yeah.
views of crime, criminal, and punishment and those types of things without taking itself too seriously.
Yeah. I feel like so those moments and that whole premise, it kind of reminds me of, so I was thinking about like pirates and the modern major general,
Mhm.
that song in the musical, in the piece. I've heard many iterations of it. I was thinking all the way back to the series Animaniacs.
Oh my god,
It
yes.
was like Warner Brothers, that they've got a
Oh, yeah.
version of it. But also more current, I was thinking of the energy on stage is very much Our Flag Means Death. The series on
It is
HBO.
exactly the same. You know, they even bring up the gentleman pirate of it all, right? That whole thing is just
Uh-huh.
incredible. I love Taika
Yeah.
Waititi, but they even bring up leap year a few times over the course of the first season, and you're like, which is a plot point in Pirates of Penzance. And I'm like, oh, this is like directly referential to this. Like, there's no way that this wasn't inspired by the other.
Yeah. Not that we're talking about that series, but it's very similar. Like this band of brothers is together and kind of clumsy together, but like when they really need to rally for each other, they are there. They just
Hmm.
sort of snap into it. And it kind of reminds me of relationships in general, how perhaps your partner in the relationship, when you go to work, you both have your strengths, you command and lead people, but then you get together and one of you sort of resigns or just packs that part of them away and gives ends up being the one that's like being taken care of versus the one sort of handling things.
Absolutely.
And I
And I
always
think there's
find
something
that to be
about that if
very
you're
interesting.
a captain or the pirate king or whatever, and it definitely happens in Our Flag Means Death, is like, oh, you don't want to be like, you like the idea of that, but when you get around your crew, you're like, no, I want you can take care of me now. Like this is a family in that way. And I
Hmm.
mean, it truly is. I mean, I don't know, I've never been a pirate, but I would assume that you're living on a boat with people and you're by yourselves all the time. Like, the ins and outs of everybody. And
Hmm.
whether you're good or bad at it, that like community support that you have throughout the course of that is all you have in a lot of those moments, right? So I think that that's
Yeah.
definitely a part of this too.
What I always find interesting about pirates and the way it's been depicted is that a pirate is always like, meant to be feared, has a legend that everyone follows and almost never sees a pirate actually perform these things. You're just like, he handled an alligator with his own hand, or like, they talk about those things. But then when you think about the premise of all these men together on a boat,
Hmm.
for long periods of time.
That's
But
right.
this is a very sort of masculine space, but it's assumed that it's void of any kind of queerness.
It's
And so
assumed,
now
and
is
yeah.
yeah. And
No,
so now
I
as
do
we're
think that
in
it's quite obvious, at least, I don't, it doesn't have to be on the nose in that way, but it's quite obvious whether you're depicting it in Our Flag Means Death or in Pirates of Penzance that there is like brotherly love in whatever version of that there
Mhm.
might be there, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. And it's just always it's interesting because it's sort of like these if you actually think about it, they're really not two isolated worlds.
Nope, not at all. And I also think that there's something about, like you were saying, the hyper masculinity doesn't preclude itself from any kind of queerness that might exist throughout the
Mhm.
course of those two things. Like they're not mutually exclusive. So I think that
Yeah.
that's also a like a kind of a beautiful open way of thinking about that world as well.
So like I said, the design of this production, it's very bright and vibrant. It feels almost like cartoony a little bit,
Absolutely.
and I think it just allows it's sort of a visual for me that we're going to have fun, right? This is going to
Absolutely.
be fun because visually all of this stuff is bright and vibrant and then the elements are just silly and fun. Um talk about take us into the rehearsal room and talk about how this cast sort of interacts with each other because it's all the way it's all staged, everybody is so close and connected, but like what's it like in the rehearsal room?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, this show is a small cast for what it's usually done. I mean, I've done the show, or other Gilbert and Sullivan shows at opera companies and things like that, where there's, an ensemble of 30, and you're like, well, you guys are the cops, and you guys are the pirates, and you guys are the maidens. In this one, everyone is everyone. There's a few of us that never have to change. And honestly, I'm very grateful for that, being one of those people. But other than me, Frederick, Mabel, and Ruth, even the major general has to be a pirate at once. But everybody else in our show, the other 7 people, play all these other parts. And so, and sometimes that requires dancing as a maiden on stage, running off stage, singing off
Uh-huh.
stage, changing into a pirate, and then running back on, and those types of things. So I think it's a fun thing for the audiences too to clock, because, like you said, it's a smaller space. People, you can see who is who, and you could be like, oh, that was the maiden before, and now they're a
Yeah.
cop now. Like it's so fun to be like, I think for the audience to kind of track that
Yeah.
as they go through. And I think I know it's a blast for, and very hard work, but a blast for our ensemble to get to play all those different parts, and like what physicality might be different for each of
Mhm.
those very specific, um, you know. So in our rehearsal space, there was a lot of that, a lot of trying to be as specific as possible with these different worlds, because they are indicative of these larger class systems or whatever they might be. So not taking it so seriously that, we're like trying to get into like, I'm a pirate, whatever, but being clear, especially physically, so that we know what world we're in whenever we're in that world.
Mhm.
So I think that's like a lot of fun, and it adds to the cartoon nature of this particular production. I think too is there's a lot of flat out to the audience kind of vaudeville esque. We have the lighting design I think is so cool in this too, and it really amplifies our, like you were saying, this kind of bright, kind of flat set that feels like vaudeville. It feels like this, like, and we have these like stage lights that come up from the bottom, right? That feel like they could be these like lamps that were lit at at the front. So there's that kind
Yeah.
of presentational feel that I think invites the audience into the story and the silliness that's happening. Like we're playing this part, that type of a thing. So you
Yeah.
don't have to take it so seriously. Like the stakes might be high on occasion because there are weapons involved, there's fights and whatever else, but it's still like it feels as if like we're telling the story for your sake, not like we're just
Mhm.
in it, like living in this kind of,
Yeah.
method situation, which I think is allows for the joy to really shine through, and allows for us to
Yeah.
have a lot of fun doing it.
It's sort of like watch this part.
Yeah, exactly. Wait for
This
this. Hold
this
on,
is
you're gonna
my
love this.
favorite part.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's like that.
It really did feel like that through the whole experience. It was a lot of fun when we the night that we went to see it. Let's talk about the audience. I know that there have been a couple of groups and like and that's a different time frame they're coming into the theater early. The way the Sedgwick is set up, you're completely consumed. You can't,
Mhm.
you don't know what time it is outside anyway in space. Talk about how that group audience was versus like like a Friday evening audience.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? I mean, this is true with every show. Our show is reflective of the audience that is there, but this is even more so because it's a comedy, right? So our timing and our pacing and delivery is dependent upon audience reaction,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes you get vocal reactions, and sometimes, as we were talking about before we started the chat here, sometimes you get these folks that are so in it, and you look at, we can see them, they're pretty close, and the lights are bright on stage, so we can see faces, and they are so in it, smiling and not making a sound, and you're like, wait,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so are you with us or not? And they really are. And at the end of the show, they, uproarious applause after in the lobby. They're like, that's the best thing I've ever seen. And you're like, what? How did this, how did one translate to the other? The size of the audience changes those things too. For instance, we were talking with you came one of the days before Thanksgiving, Tuesday night. Those first few shows that week were a little smaller, but the shows after Thanksgiving, we had two shows on Friday and two shows on Saturday, and they were packed and loud and raucous, and they were in it from the beginning. And you're like, okay, we can kind of ride this energy in certain ways. And essentially, you shouldn't be changing your show depending on if it's for one person or 1,000. But when it
Yeah.
comes to timing and pacing,
Mm-hmm.
audience verbal reactions, of course, it affects what we're doing and how
Yeah.
we do it, and for how long or how much we're mugging for the audience and things like that. Because there are moments of that happen, and there are moments that our director, Alex Burns, has added into it where we do address the audience directly. That we break our
Mm-hmm.
fourth wall and we're like, so this kind of what you're saying, like,
Mm-hmm.
this is my favorite part, or like, let's listen,
Yeah.
let's talk about this. And so that can be different as it goes through. What I wanted to mention as well, yesterday we had our first student matinee at 10:30 a.m. God bless us all. And it was really wonderful. It was a group of middle schoolers, different middle schools, and you never know what they're gonna, I mean, the truth. They will tell you the truth about how you're doing when it comes to things
Yes.
like this. And it might be their first show that they've ever been at. So they might not know how and when to react or if they're allowed to laugh
Mm-hmm.
or, unfortunately or fortunately, whatever, we live in a virtual world where we don't necessarily need verbal reactions all the time. So it's interesting to hear them and how they react or if they react and who they are on board with, who's their favorite. Like a lot of the times I think people really like the pirates, the adults do, but the groups yesterday really liked Ruth, who was one of our pirates. Like they were obsessed with Christina. Our Ruth is fantastic, but they were like on her side the whole time. And we were like,
Yeah.
okay, well, it's just fun to see how that shifts as we go through. And this show in particular is going to be so fun because it is over the holidays. It's definitely a family show for kids. We've had
Mm-hmm.
some little kids come and see it and just be like, on the front row. And that's such a blast to be able to give that experience to everybody because the show truly is for everybody that would want to come and see
Yeah.
it.
It's such a spectacle too. Like you all have wonderful voices, fancy feet moving around. The costumes are amazing. And like I said, the color story on it, it's like, I was thinking about when you're saying like they're smiling, but they're not like really responding, but they are enjoying themselves. It reminds me of this story, and I'm kind of paraphrasing. A funny thing happened on the way to the forum
Hmm.
initially when it first came out. It was like people didn't know how to respond to this. They had to change the beginning to tell you this is a comedy, so that they can laugh. It's called A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, you know, but the audience is like, should we be laughing or processing this?
Right.
So sometimes you have to sort of let them know that you're about to have a good time and you can
Yes,
relax. And I think it's hard for groups, especially young groups, because they're being sort of coached to behave themselves.
for sure.
But like
When they're in
this
school in
show
particular.
is, yeah, but the show is so madcapped that the audience going crazy over it too is just as great. It's just going to amplify and elevate the experience.
Absolutely. And I think that's such a
Yeah.
fun thing to get to provide that for someone's first experience in particular at the
Hmm.
theater. I mean, that is such a wonderful thing to be able to be like, yeah, if you think this is funny, you can laugh out loud. If you think it's great,
Yeah.
you want to clap. If you want to ooh, or like when someone kisses someone, they're like, ooh, whatever your reactions are, here you can do that in this dark room where we're all just telling a story together. This isn't math class. You know what I mean? Like there's different ways of adjusting for what that is. And this can be such a fun time. Wouldn't you want to come back and see others? And so I think this is
Yeah.
a really
Yeah.
wonderful show to open that door to folks that might not have had that experience before.
Yeah. From your perspective, being an artist in theater in the various ways that you are, what do you think about the theater landscape right now, from your viewpoint?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, obviously, one of the biggest things that my screen acting friends that do that primarily that they're dealing with recently has been and everyone and just in society in general is dealing with the influx of artificial intelligence and
Yeah.
how that is shaping all aspects of our world, right? In every industry. Theater feels precious in that way. It feels a little isolated away from that. There's no real, I mean, what you're seeing on stage, that's the whole point, is I'm a human, you're a human. We're having this conversation together as an audience, performer, interaction. And that seems to me a safe haven away from the fears that we might have when it comes to the progress of technology in that way, right?
Mhm.
So I know I have some friends that live in LA that work, mainly on screen that are longing for and are striving more in recent years for more of their theater experience because of that, because they get to have this actual interaction with someone on stage and this audience. There's not a green screen or motion capture. All these things are amazing. And like, I'm not trying to make some statement about that, but that person to person interaction on stage and with your audience is precious. And I mean, for me, it's my church that's going to experience that and being able to give that to people is the most important thing in the world. Yes, it can affect change. It can be escapism for people. It can be activism. It can be all these amazing things, but it can make people just remember what it is to be a human. I think that that's the
Yeah.
biggest thing. And so coming out of the pandemic, I mean, there's a lot of smaller theaters that really struggled through that, obviously, and were budgeting is difficult coming out of that and programming and some things amazing theaters had to close their doors because of that or there's still residual effects of that. Absolutely. So I think that that part of the landscape is a little frightening, but it does feel I'm very grateful to be a part of this industry because of seeing the pathway and the reading the tea leaves of how other things are going. It feels sacred in this way of like, well, people will still want to come into a room in the dark with strangers and watch other strangers pretend to be other people, Like
Yeah.
we will always want that. And you can tell that from the audiences. I mean, coming out of the pandemic in particular, people being frightened of being in public and whatever else, but people craving it so much.
Mhm.
Um, I think that that's a huge indicator of how important this industry is to us as like a society, as a civilized society.
Yeah. I love how you talked about AI because, you know, there are ways for us to use technology to tell our story, but it's still this authentic delivery of lines and performance from our actors. Like we're never gonna I hope we never get to a point where, our understudy is an AI hologram. No.
Yeah. No.
You
No one
know?
wants that. No one
But
wants that.
yeah. Yeah, and we're getting so we keep pressing this all the time. Live theater is just that. It's live, it's original. It's this time is the only time it's going to happen like this.
That's right.
So my experience on Tuesday the 25th is never going to happen again, you
Mhm.
know? And so we're fortunate enough to be in the space at that time and do that. Those kids who were at the matinee yesterday, that's an experience that is not going to be duplicated.
It is
And I
singular and
hope,
it is ephemeral, like, it's meant to disappear in that moment. It's meant to
yeah.
only exist right then, and if you weren't there, yeah, you can record it. We watch famous videos of performances of the past and famous actors and things like that, and that's fine, but that performance wasn't for me. That was for those people sitting in that audience, and it
Yeah.
only existed right then.
Yeah. So So you're currently in this piece, and you said that you've done other Gilbert and Sullivan pieces. Do you have any favorites?
The one that I've done the most has been HMS Pinafore, which was actually Gilbert and Sullivan's show that they did right before this. It feels as if it feels as if it was kind of a tryout for Pirates, because Pirates is like their most famous show. And Pinafore is similar in some ways. There's the class system, there's the duty, there's the boat, there's a character that's kind of similar to the Major General, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done that a few times, and it's also so fun. And there's parts in Pirates where they reference Pinafore, because I mean, these guys were like, this is like the Lin-Manuel Miranda of theater at the time. There's actually all these amazing stories of when this was premiering in England. There were no such thing as international copyright laws at the time. So people would go and see the show in England, come back to America and have their version of the show. They would write down what they could remember. And there was a moment, and I'm sure someone's going to check this and be like, this is wrong. But there was a moment when in New York, there were multiple, like 3 productions of Pirates happening at the same time with different versions. Songs were in different places, different keys, different lyrics, because it was like the Wild Wild West out here.
Mm-hmm.
But it was so popular for obvious reasons, right? So I just find that quite fascinating too. So Pinafore is a part of that and building into that. But the whole style of this operetta and this British humor type of thing, I think is, as a lot of Americans are kind of Anglophiles anyway, we yearn for that, and we're like, oh yeah, now that's fun. And to be
Mm-hmm.
honest, the Brits do know how to do comedy and theater in that way, and so it's kind of fun to live in that tradition.
Yeah, yeah. Um, there's like I was saying, there's so Gilbert and Sullivan are referenced in pop culture so often that you
Hmm.
can pinpoint some point in your life. And I think it's from The Simpsons. The first time Sideshow Bob tries to kill Bart, Bart asks him to sing the HMS Pinafore, and he says, "I will send you to heaven before I send you to hell." And then he sings the whole song, and of course this is a to kill time so that they can plot a way out of there. But
Sure.
it's just those are the things that, like, if you don't consider yourself a theater person, you will realize that there are elements of theater that have already affected you,
That's right.
and you've enjoyed them. And so sometimes, like, if you're new to this or you're not working in it, like, you don't think this is for you until you get there and you're like, wow, this was great. This was a lot of fun. This is what
Right.
you do in this building? Yes, it is. And we pull a bunch of people together, we rehearse for a while. There's a moment where we all just want to drop it and quit, and then we open.
Yeah, that
It's
that
always
arc
like
is
that. You
always
know
the
what?
same.
I know we did a lot of work, but I'm totally fine if we just hang this up tomorrow.
That's right. And then you get your first
But
audience
it
and you go,
works.
oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Okay.
Yeah,
Then
which is
now I
like
see.
a dopamine hit, and you're just like, daddy
Absolutely.
needs his fix now.
That's right. Now I never want to close
Yeah,
this thing. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Do you have a favorite moment of this production, or not particularly where you shine, but like, is there a moment that you love to be there and observe in it?
I guess there's two. Well, there's a few. I mean, there's some really amazing singing that gets to happen in this particular production. Not necessarily by me, by mainly our leads, our Frederick and our Mabel. Man, they are cranking this out 8 shows a week, and I'm like,
Yeah.
and it is full opera. I mean, we are unamplified in this theater. It's a small theater, so there's not necessarily a problem of being heard, but you got to
Hmm.
be you got to be making sound. You got to be resonating and supporting yourself and that kind of a thing. And I get to sit and listen to a lot of that, and I got to sit and listen to a lot of it in rehearsals. Um, and some of that singing is just so stunning. It just washes over you when you've had all this silliness and these fights and whatever and this banter, and then we just stop, and it's just like this wash of sound and emotion that you get to have is
Yeah.
so satisfying. That's amazing. We also have this big sword fight at the end that, like, I feel like we're all like waiting for the whole time. And for me, for my character, the Pirate King, he's just like, finally, I'm ready. I've got all my stuff. Like, this is why I became a pirate. It was to do this. Like, and it's not like no one's dying. Like, the stakes are kind of high, but like
Yeah.
there's the threat of that, but it's more just like the play of it. He's like, no, let me show
Hmm.
this thing. Like, I practiced. So, which
Yeah.
is exactly how I feel, Trevor feels doing it because it's such a fun mix mash of like, and there's so much happening on stage, and I just think it's so satisfying, and there's so many different storylines to watch as people start fighting
Mhm.
with other people, and yeah, that's a definitely a highlight for me.
Yeah. Was this your first time working with Quintessence?
It was, yeah, it is. I had auditioned for them in the past, and I'd always been attracted to them because they make a point of their mission being bringing in and doing classics. I mean, a lot of theaters shy away from that for whatever reason, and Quintessence leans into it, whether it be classics like this or plays or Shakespeare or Kiss Me Kate they did last year, like the Golden Age shows. Like,
Mhm.
that's the type of stuff that I enjoy and that I think I do the best. And so to find a theater that leans into that and almost exclusively does shows like that is really wonderful. That being said, they also just did a world premiere of a play called Fire right before this.
Mhm.
So there's the balance of here's something new and then here's something
Yeah.
older that both deserve to be put on the pedestal here.
Absolutely. Yeah. And our listeners can go back and listen to Fire. Had a great interview with Kashin on that one. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, what you said about Quintessence is what I've always liked about Quintessence as well. It's like there's silly things. They're going to focus on the classic. They're going to do it unabridged if they can.
For sure.
And so you're going to be sitting there for a minute. There's always a thought like, if I'm going to Quintessence, I'm going to a matinee.
So I can get
Because
all
it's
go to
going to,
sleep.
so I want to see the whole thing. Or usually like, if you go to an evening, then for me, I live downtown, so I've gotta, like,
Hmm.
plan very meticulously to get back down there, but,
But not to plug our show again, but it is only 2 hours, which is
yeah,
great. Each act is a little under
yeah,
an hour, which is lovely for me too, because a lot of these classics, like I was saying, that I'm attracted to as well, are lengthy and for good reason. If something's good, I'll sit there all night and watch it. But
yeah,
there's also something to be said for brevity.
yeah. Well, that's also the point. It is good. It's good at Quintessence. I have never walked out of the theater,
Yeah.
not that I would ever walk out of the theater, but I've always walked away saying, like, "I really enjoyed this," and as far the more time uh, from my experience and the more I talk about it, my thoughts about it evolve more. And I'm saying, and I'm like, yeah, you got to go see this. Go see this. Go get
Yeah.
a friend. Really unpack this. There's just a lot of great work. There's a lot of great work there. And the fact that they're not right downtown also speaks to what a draw they are
Hmm.
bringing more people down to Chestnut Hill, Mount Airy,
Absolutely.
Germantown area.
Yeah, which is amazing and beautiful here. So, and if people are willing to, I mean, I was wondering that too when I came and saw Fire because we overlapped for about a week. It was packed. I think I went on Halloween
Hmm.
night and I was like, what are all these people doing? Like, y'all came up here for the, I mean, it was wonderful. I mean, it scratches an itch that seems to be needed in the city. So that's a wonderful thing to be a part of.
Yeah. It's also a good sign that people are going out and, patronizing theaters again,
Hmm.
more so than maybe last season, which is really great.
Hmm.
Not to rush this off the stage, but what's next after the Pirates of Penzance?
For me, I do know that I have a concert version of My Fair Lady lined up for April. I did 2 My Fair Ladies this last summer, which is a lot. Speaking of a long night at the theater with a lot of talking, but that's coming up. I have a few auditions actually in the next few weeks for, that kind of spring, section of times.
Mhm.
Fingers crossed that something would, kind of fit into that, but it's kind of a fun game, like, I say fun because I'm currently employed, but, like, when you're employed, you gotta be finding the next thing too, right, at the
Yeah,
same
it's a
time,
chase.
and always a chase, and that is part of the attraction, but also part of the stress of it.
Mhm.
So I have some things like that lined up, some concerts and things for next summer, but in the theater world, I mean, we're really kind of working a few months in advance before that time. So now is the time to be looking for things for February, which is what some of these auditions that I have coming up, or for some of these callbacks. Um, that would be a blast.
Yeah.
That being said, this last year I've been very fortunate to. I mean, I live in New York, but I was in New York for about 3 months of the year because I was out of the city working, which is wonderful and it's a great thing. But I do like being there in my home. I kind of, if something doesn't work out, being
Being
there,
home is
for a
fine
few
too.
months would be totally fine with me.
Yeah. So what is your downtime like when you're not on a stage, when you're not chasing a job? Like how do you enjoy your life?
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, I'm a musician. I play a lot of instruments, and so I find a lot of therapy in that, in particular in piano and guitar and things like that. So just for my own enjoyment, not for something, not to learn this song for an audition or for a performance. I'm an avid reader. I mean, my mom's a school teacher. She's always been throwing books at me since I was little. So that is always what I'm spending my time doing. I carry my books with me everywhere. Also during the show, whenever I can figure out, okay, my pacing, I have this time down. I can get like a few chapters in, things like that that are enriching in its own way. The stuff that we do on stage requires physicality, obviously. So I try to be as active as possible outside of that. I mean, obviously for the aesthetics, we all love that, but more for the practicality and the utilitarian idea of I want to be able to run around and do a fight and then the same, you know?
Yeah.
So, and it's a nice way of taking care of my body and my mental state, especially if I'm in a place that's not my home, which is a
Mhm.
lot of the time. So this is a thing that I can do and help regulate my nervous system a little bit if I'm in a new place. And so, yeah, it's interesting when I'm in the run of shows as we are now. We try to take it easy during the day. If we have two shows, try to active rest is a really wonderful thing that I think we're all probably pretty bad at. Allowing myself to feel like I can do that is great. So finding things that will maybe stimulate my mind, if not my body, is certainly a way of kind of combating that energy that's required to be on stage.
Yeah. So even though you're out on Germantown Avenue, have
Mhm.
you have you had time while you're here to take in any parts of Philadelphia?
We on Thanksgiving Day, some of us were staying here. We had a show the day before and the day after. We went down to the Christmas market at
Mhm.
City Hall. Oh, it was so cute, and bought some Christmas gifts and things like that. And I really want to go
Yeah.
back. Uh, we have a few cast members that are local that live around that area as well. And now that we've opened the show, we have more opportunity to be able to do that. I'm very grateful
Yeah.
that my parents who live in Georgia, they're very supportive of me and what I get to do. And I know that they're a big reason why I am able to do what I'm doing. They're going to come in a few weeks and they've never been to Philadelphia. I've been here in the past for other things, but we're going to go do, Old
Mhm.
City and a lot of these history walks and things like that it's just amazing. It's so beautiful. Philadelphia is an incredible
Awesome.
place. So and we're gonna eat some food, some very yummy food that some of our local cast here has given us some lists of ideas and things like that,
Yeah.
which is a lovely way of getting to experience a new place, is asking the people that live there, like, "What do you like to do? Where
Yep.
do you go to eat? What kind of places do you like to go enjoy?" And, so I'm looking forward to that in the next few weeks with some of our time off to get to it's not very far, we can kinda go and have a day and go enjoy that and
Mhm.
really get to feel like because we're here it's a long contract, which I'm grateful for, and we can really feel more immersed in the city as opposed to just kind of floating along the top and doing our show only.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this was a great chat. Everyone, the Pirates of Penzance is on stage at Quintessence Theater Group. It's on stage through January 1st. So you can go get tickets. I'll give you the short address, qtgrep.org, qtgrep.org to get tickets. And that's tickets plural because what do I always say? Theater is more fun with a plus one.
Hey.
So definitely get out to Quintessence to see the Pirates of Penzance. Trevor Martin plays the Pirate King in this wonderful band of misfits, this wonderful ensemble on Quintessence stage. It's a lot of fun and it's fun for the whole family. So, bring your sweetie or bring your siblings and
Mhm.
nibblings, all the little ones to come out and enjoy in this experience. Trevor Martin, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me
Of
and
course, it was my
to let us
pleasure.
get to know you. Yeah, hope
Thank you
we
so much for having
see
me.
more of you in our area. It was a pleasure to chat with you today.